Percents, Part 2. In today's lesson, students will learn how to find a percentage of a number by using division or multiplication. By using what? Very good. So now that you know how to change fractions into decimals and decimals into percents, we can use what we've learned to find the percent of a number. Now, for percentages, it's very important when you start to talk about shopping, okay? And we're going to learn discounts and sales tax. But the very first part of that is knowing how to find a percentage of a number. So when I talk about a percent of a number, I'm talking about a fraction. And you know with percent, what is the denominator? What is the denominator of a percent? It's what? It's 100. So if you want to find a percentage of a number, so to find a percentage of a number, okay, you have two options. Whatever makes most sense to you, you can choose. Option number one, you can, if you know the fraction that represents the percentage, you could change the percentage to a fraction okay, and what you're going to end up doing is dividing, although you're multiplying by a fraction. When you multiply by a fraction, what ends up happening is that you divide, okay? So you can divide. Basically, you're going to divide the number by the denominator, and I'll show you that in just a second, okay? So option one, change the percent into a fraction, and you're going to divide. Or, and this is what we're going to learn today, change the percent to a decimal and you're going to multiply. You're going to do the opposite. Okay? So the other option is change the percent into a decimal and then you multiply. Okay, so let's take a look at how to do this two ways. It says, what is 50% of 56? Another way of saying this is what? 50% is what fraction? What fraction is it? If I talk about 50% of something, I'm talking about what? I'm talking about half, right? So half is what fraction, my friends? What fraction? 1 over 2, right. So take the whole number. The whole number is 56. We're trying to find a portion or a percentage. I'm asking you, really the question is, what's half of 56? What's half of 56? So if you multiply by 1/2, okay, when you multiply by a fraction like this is really saying 56 times 1 divided by 2. Isn't that what that's saying? Look, if I put this over 1, it's saying 56 times 1 is 56. Then multiply out the denominators. 1 times 2 is 2. All right? So really this is saying that if you're taking half of 56, you're dividing 56 by 2. So the long division would be over here. 56 goes in the box divided by 2. Then we perform our long division. We say 2 goes into 2 goes into 5 how many times? 2 times? 2 times 2 is 4. Subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. Bring down the 6. All right, so how many times does 2 now go into 16? 2 goes into 16 how many times? How many times? 8. Very good. Then you have 8 times 2, which is 16. Subtract, you get 0. So the answer, the quotient, is 28. And that makes sense, doesn't it? The answer is 28. Because you know what half of 50 is, right? Half of 50. I talked about 2 quarters. What about just 1 quarter? That's 25. So if you have 56, first you take half of 50, which is 25. Then you take half of 6. What's half of 6? Half of 6 is, what's half of 6? It's 3, right? So then you just in your head say 25 plus 3, which is 28. Okay, let me show you option number 2. Option number 2. Now you're going to be able to do this on your calculator. If you're going to use a calculator though, there is one thing that you have to do, and that is change the percent into a decimal. So you take the number 56, which is the whole number. I'm asking you, what is half of 56? I'm going to multiply it not by 50. How do you change 50% into a decimal? How do you write 50 hundredths? What do you need? You need a decimal that comes first, then you write 50. Remember how to do that? So in your calculator, if you're going to use your calculator, you would write 56 multiplied by decimal 50. That would be 50% of 56. Now, okay, so let's go ahead and multiply. You have 0 times 6 is a 0, and 0 times 5 is also 0. Okay, so now you're done multiplying the 0, put a placeholder. Now we're going to multiply the 5. 5 times 6 is 30, so put a 0, carry the 3. And then 5 times 5 is 25. Plus 3 is, what's 25 plus 3? It is 28. So when you add your answers together, you're going to get 0082. And when you're multiplying by a decimal, very, very simple. You ask yourself, how many places are after the decimal? 1, 2. So you start right over here, and you count back 1, 2. Now, this says that the answer is 28, right? 28 with a decimal. Okay, that also equals 28. So either way, you have that half of 56 is 28. Go ahead and get that down. Let's talk about calculators. A calculator is a very important and useful tool that can be used to multiply and divide numbers quickly, particularly when you're working with percentages. Okay, so for those of you who still have not learned how to do long multiplication and long division, the calculator will be very important, but you have to know how to use it. Okay, so let's go with number 1. It says, what is 75% of 48? Okay, so the first thing that you can do that I want you to use with the calculator is this. You're going to change that percentage into a fraction. And remember how I said you're going to divide? Okay. What I need you to do is multiply first and then divide. Watch this. You're going to take the whole number. The whole number, the purple number, is 48. Okay? All right. Then you're going to write a multiplication sign. Multiply. All right. So 75%. You have to know in your mind that 75% is what fraction? Think about quarters. Think about quarters. 75 cents is how many quarters out of $1? How many quarters is it? 75 cents? 3, right? So it's 3 quarters. And how many quarters are there in $1? How many quarters are there in $1? There are 4 quarters in $1. Okay. So if you want to find 75% of 48, then you really have to multiply it by 3/4. Now in a calculator, let's go ahead and do this. Okay. The first thing you're going to do is multiply, right? Multiply. You're going to say 48 times the numerator. What's the numerator? The numerator is 3. Then you are going to press equals. Okay. So first you would multiply it by 3, which would give you 144. Okay. Then what do we have to divide it by? Because really what this is saying is 48 times 3 divided by 4. So then we're going to divide by 4. And what do we get as our answer? The answer is, what is it? 36. Very good. Okay. So this is 36. It's saying that 36 is 75% or 3/4 of 48. Let's do it another way. And this is the way that you probably will learn or have learned before from many of your teachers. And that is to change the percentage into a decimal and then you multiply. Okay, so let's do that. First, we're going to write the whole number, 100% of the number. That is 48. We want to find, well, what's 3/4 of it, or what is 75%? So we're going to multiply it by 75%. So how do you change 75% into a decimal? How do you write 75 hundredths? You write it as decimal 75, right? Okay. So whenever you want to find a percent of a number, all you do is change the percent to a decimal, which means if the decimal was here, move it how many places to the left? You're going to move it 2 places. Okay, you're going to put a decimal in front of that number, and you're going to multiply. So let's go ahead and show you with a calculator. If you want to find 75% of 48, you're going to say 48 multiplied by, where is the decimal? Where's the decimal? You see the little period, the little dot? You're going to say 0.75. That says 75%. Or 75 hundredths. When you multiply it by 75%, what should you get? What should the answer be? Because guess what? It's going to be the same as this. What should the answer be? It should be what? It should be 36. So that's how you're going to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Okay? It should be 36. So this number and this number have to match to make sure that you use the calculator precisely and correctly. Go ahead and get that down. Okay, let's try our last example, and it says, what is 25% of 64? Okay, so what you're going to notice is you're going to get percentages that are either going to be 25, 50, or 75. And why did I do that? Because you know about money, don't you? You know about money, 25%. Think about a dollar. Okay, what is 25% of a dollar? Isn't that 1/4? 1/4, yes? Okay, so if you want to change the percentage into a fraction, you're going to start with the whole number, which is 64. It's asking, really, what is 1/4 of 64? Or what is 1 what? You're going to multiply it by what fraction is a quarter? A quarter is 1 out of how many makes a dollar? 1 out of 4, that is correct. 1 out of 4. Okay, so on your calculator, you can look at it 2 ways. This is saying 64 times 1 divided by 4. That's what it's saying, okay? So you can either do 64 times 1 divided by 4, or since 64 times 1 is 64, you could just divide by 4. So let's start with 64. Here we go, 64. Okay, when you're multiplying by a fraction, you say multiplied by the numerator. What's the numerator? The numerator is, what is it? It's 1. And what is 1 times 64? It equals 64. But then, this is a division bar. It says you should divide by 4. So we're going to press divided by, and then we're going to press 4. Okay, so really, what is 1/4 of 64? It's 16. Okay. What is it? 16. It means that if you multiplied, now let's go backwards. If you multiplied 16 by 4, 16 times 4, what do you think you would get? What do you think you would get 16 times 4? What do you think? Yes, it would be 64, right? That's again how you check yourself. If you think that 1/4 of a number is 16, then you should be able to take 16 multiplied by that number and go ahead and get 64, which we did. All right, so we have that it's 16. Let's check by multiplying by the decimal. You're going to go ahead and start with 64, and then you're going to multiply by 25 hundredths as a decimal. So all you have to do is write 25, but put a decimal in front, and make sure when you solve this problem on your calculator that you put a decimal first. So let's go ahead and start with 64. You have 64. Okay. You're going to multiply it by what? 0.25. Okay. That says 25 hundredths. Then you're going to press equals, and what should your answer be? What should your answer be? It should be what? What is 25% of 16? I'm sorry, what is 25% of 64? It's 16, right? Okay. So, do the answers match? Is this 16 and is this 16? Yes, so you can check. So you're saying that a quarter of 64 is 16. Okay, go ahead and get that down.